In their line of duty, police officers face unimaginable threats, from violent assaults and dangerous traffic incidents to confronting gang members. These risks put their lives on the line daily, leading to minor injuries, massive trauma, or tragically death. This video delves into the most heartbreaking stories of officers who paid the ultimate price, leaving their families in mourning. In February 2017, Eric Mumau, an 18-year veteran of the Nashville Metro Police Department, responded to an urgent dispatch from the Metro Emergency Communications Center. The call concerned Julie Glisson, a distressed woman in crisis located at the Peeler Park boat ramp near the Cumberland River. This scenario set the stage for a tense and potentially life-threatening situation, showcasing the bravery and dedication required of officers in the face of such emergencies. As expected, Eric and his colleague, Officer Nick Diamond, rushed to the location to save Julie before she could commit the act of taking her own life. Upon their arrival, they found her in the driver's seat of a car positioned precariously at the edge of the boat ramp with her foot on the brake. They immediately attempted to persuade her to leave the car and come with them. After a few minutes of back and forth, the driver's door opened, and they believed they had convinced Julie not to continue with her plan to end her life. However, at that moment, the car slipped out of the park and rolled into the water, as Julie shockingly decided to put the car into gear. The suddenness of the act caught Eric and Nick off guard, preventing them from reacting quickly enough. They both lost their footing and were pulled into the water by the car's weight as it sank. While Nick and Julie managed to swim back to shore quickly, Eric was carried further into the river, struggling against the cold water and challenging conditions. A third officer, Trent Craig, who witnessed the incident unfold, quickly ran along the riverbank for a short distance and jumped into the water to save Eric. However, he soon realized that the water was at neck level and frigid, with a strong current making it impossible to swim toward Eric. Faced with the danger to his own life, he was forced to make the difficult decision to get out of the water while Eric continued to drift further away. Minutes after Eric was no longer in sight, the Nashville Fire Department officers arrived and dispatched boats to search the river for him. Helicopters were also deployed to assist in the search efforts. Several hours later, a diver located Eric's body approximately 70 yards from the boat dock, confirming that he had drowned. Meanwhile, Officer Nick and Julie were rushed to a nearby medical center for treatment during the search for Eric. Both did not sustain any life-threatening injury during the incident. Within days, Nick was released, but Julie was booked in the county jail and placed under investigation. Ultimately, Julie was charged with aggravated vehicular homicide by intoxication alongside other charges. She pleaded guilty to the aggravated vehicular homicide charge and was subsequently handed a maximum penalty of 12 years in prison. Other charges were dropped while she was stripped of her driving license for 10 years. While Eric was alive, he was known for performing several heroic acts, including saving a baby inside a car that was hijacked from its father and rescuing an individual who was being attacked by a roommate wielding a sword. Over time, his actions earned him the department's exemplary service and life-saving awards. Despite not being obligated to be on the night shift since he was a more senior officer, Eric would regularly volunteer for the change to help his colleagues. Meanwhile, in his community, he often went out of his way to help the people he served in his community. This was seen by his frequent bringing of donuts to local emergency service workers and hot meals for homeless people. Eric's untimely death was met with profound sorrow, leaving a community in mourning. Known for his dedication and kindness, Eric was honored with heartfelt tributes from colleagues and friends alike. A memorial service drew law enforcement officers and first responders from across the state, all gathered to pay their respects. He was posthumously awarded the Medal of Valor, the Metro Nashville Police Department's highest honor. 3 years later, his legacy was permanently etched into the heart of his community with the unveiling of a commemorative plaque at Peeler Park, a lasting tribute to his service and sacrifice. In March 2022, Eastland County, Texas was ravaged by catastrophic wildfires that tore through the region, leaving a trail of destruction. These relentless blazes consumed dozens of structures, including cherished homes, vital businesses, and community buildings, displacing families and disrupting lives. Entire communities were forced to evacuate, fleeing the encroaching infernos that transformed their landscapes into scenes of devastation. The fires left a lasting impact on the region, underscoring the resilience and strength of those affected. Amid this crisis, Deputy Sergeant Barbara Fenley of the Eastland County Sheriff's Office was one of many law enforcement officers who bravely stepped up to assist with traffic control and evacuations, ensuring that residents could leave the danger zone safely and that emergency vehicles could access the affected areas. As multiple fire agencies battled the fire, Barbara set out to check on an older adult stuck in one of the affected areas. However, she never returned home to her family or called them to inform them of her whereabouts. Her family began to worry when she did not answer their phone calls and failed to show up. When they contacted dispatch, they were informed that her current location was unknown, although dispatch confirmed her last known destination. After the fire had been calmed down enough for a rescue search to be initiated, it was discovered that Barbara had been going door to door in the area, which was in the path of the wildfires. She had been attempting to notify other citizens to leave the area due to the encroaching flames and thick smoke. However, as she drove along a farm-to-market road near FM 2526, the visibility became dangerously low due to the thick smoke. At some point, she could no longer see the road ahead clearly. While navigating through the poor visibility, Barbara inadvertently drove off the road and into the wildfire, engulfing her car in flames. Her burnt body was later found in the vehicle by the rescue team and then taken to the morgue. Her family was also informed of the devastating loss. In honor of Barbara, the state governor ordered flags to be lowered to half-staff. He also appreciated her for her service, saying she gave her life in the service of others and loved her community. Meanwhile, tributes poured in from her loved ones and colleagues, with many remarking that she was passionate about her job and deeply loved helping people. Barbara was 51 years old at the time of her death. She began her law enforcement career in 2003 as a patrol officer for the city of Gorman, where she grew up. In January 2007, she was appointed Gorman's chief of police, a position she held until 2013. Afterward, she became a deputy for the Eastland County Sheriff's Office, working diligently as an officer in the courthouse until the tragic incident. During her memorial service at Myrtle Wilkes Community Center in Cisco, an estimated 1,500 to 2,000 people came to pay their last respects. Law enforcement officers around the state made up a significant portion of the crowd, reflecting how highly her colleagues regarded her. Since then, discussions have been raised about designating a section of FM 2526 in Eastland County as the Sergeant Barbara Fenley Memorial Highway to commemorate her sacrifice. Barbara was survived by her husband, 3 children, and 2 grandchildren. On August 25, 2017, Hurricane Harvey, a ferocious Category 4 hurricane, unleashed its wrath on Houston and nearby cities, causing catastrophic flooding and torrential rainfall. The sheer devastation left communities in chaos, with entire neighborhoods submerged underwater. Amid this turmoil, just 2 days after the disaster struck, Steve Perez, a dedicated sergeant with the Houston Police Department, demonstrated extraordinary bravery. Despite the dangerous conditions and overwhelming destruction, he made the courageous decision to report for duty, exemplifying unwavering commitment and heroism in the face of unprecedented adversity. His actions provided a beacon of hope and resilience to a city in desperate need. At around 4 a.m. that day, Steve left his house for work despite the warnings from his wife and father-in-law, who believed it was too dangerous for him to commute in such conditions. After driving for over 2 hours to reach his duty station, Steve soon realized that the conditions were far worse than anticipated. The hurricane's force destroyed every possible route to his station, or was rendered impassable by the overwhelming floodwaters. Being the dedicated professional he was, Steve refused to turn back home. Instead, he followed departmental protocol and decided to go to a secondary location. He informed dispatch of his intentions and advised that he would report to the nearest station in Kingwood. However, tragically, he never made it to that location. Throughout that day, Steve's absence went unnoticed amidst the chaos of the flooding crisis. On August 28th, his absence was finally noted during a roll call conducted by a senior officer. Immediately, Steve's colleagues began attempting to reach him, knowing he was not one to miss work without a reason. When they contacted his wife, she shared that she had not seen him since he left home. Meanwhile, attempts to contact his phone and the dispatch in his assigned police vehicle were unsuccessful. At this point, it was clear that Steve was missing. His colleagues swung into action, initiating an extensive search along the potential paths he might have taken to reach the station in Kingwood. After several hours, they narrowed the search to an area around Hardy Tollway and Beltway 8. However, the area was still heavily submerged, and with nightfall approaching, it was too dangerous to begin an underwater search for Steve. The next day, members of the Houston Police Department dive team resumed the search for Steve. Ultimately, they located his body in patrol car. It was determined that as he drove into an underpass about 16.5 feet, his patrol car was swept away by the high water in the area. The cause of death was also concluded to be drowning. Steve's untimely death came 2 days shy of his 61st birthday. During his 34 years of service as a police officer, he worked in various offices for the department, including the Juvenile, Emergency Communications, Special Operations, Crime Analysis and Command Center, Vehicular Crimes, and Traffic Enforcement Divisions. His colleagues described him as a gentle public servant and one of the sweetest people in the department. His son Maverick also fondly remembered him as the most excellent protector, defender, and rescuer, whose love was pure and endless and made him believe he could do anything. A few weeks after Steve's death, he was buried at the Houston National Cemetery. His memorial service featured honor guards, a riderless horse, a helicopter flyover, and a last radio call held in his honor, celebrating his dedication and sacrifice. To help the family Steve had left behind, the Sergeants Benevolent Association launched a GoFundMe. It received an outpouring of generosity from well-wishers, raising nearly $20,000 from over 300 donations within a few weeks. On October 29, 2013, Robert Bingaman, an officer with the Asheville Police Department in Buncombe County, was traveling along the Captain Jeff Bowen Bridge when tragedy struck. He suddenly lost control of his patrol car. Within moments, the vehicle crashed nose first through the bridge's guardrail and plummeted 50 feet before landing along Riverside Drive below. Witnesses to the accident quickly alerted authorities, prompting an immediate response. However, stabilizing the precariously positioned police car was a formidable challenge. Rescuers had to ingeniously secure the vehicle's back end to a bridge piling, ensuring it didn't topple further and allowing them to proceed safely with their rescue efforts. Once the car was stabilized on the bridge, the rescue team worked diligently to pry open the vehicle, which was severely damaged from the impact of the fall. Tragically, they found Robert in critical condition. Despite their best efforts to provide medical assistance, he succumbed to his injuries shortly after. The initial investigation by the Highway Patrol revealed that Robert had been speeding at the time of the accident and was not wearing a seatbelt. Additionally, he was not using his lights or siren when the crash occurred. These factors likely contributed to the severity of the collision and the critical injuries he sustained. Later, many speculated that the bridge's design also contributed to the accident. The Jeff Bowen Bridge is the busiest highway in the area, with an average of 99,000 vehicles passing through the path daily. It carries traffic from both a city street and an interstate simultaneously, resulting in vehicles traveling at significantly different speeds and attempting to navigate multiple lanes in a short distance. This layout created challenges for many drivers who ply the bridge, leading to numerous close calls and accidents over the years. Tragically, the reason for Robert's demise on the very streets he patrolled remains a mystery. At the time of his passing, he was the first Asheville police officer killed in the line of duty in 41 years. He was also just 37 years old and had dedicated 6 years to the Asheville Police Department. Throughout his career, he worked in the Traffic Safety Unit, focusing on investigating traffic accidents and addressing various traffic-related concerns in the community. Off work, he was known for volunteering and was very active in his community. Before joining the Asheville Police Department, Robert served in the Marine Corps as an auto mechanic, stationed at Camp Lejeune for 4 years. He left the Corps after attaining the rank of sergeant. Robert was ultimately laid to rest at the Western North Carolina Veterans Cemetery in Black Mountain, after a packed memorial service attended by hundreds. His death came as a shock to both his loved ones and colleagues, many of whom described him as an outstanding and dedicated officer who would be missed daily. The police chief remembered him as a great guy who did his job well. Months later, a spring 5K run and obstacle course competition were organized as a fundraiser for police, fire, and rescue teams in Robert's memory. All proceeds from the event were donated to NC Cops, a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting families of officers killed in the line of duty as they navigate their grief. The initiative was spearheaded by Robert's widow, Jenny Bingaman, who was determined to honor her husband's legacy. In April 2024, Deputy Fred Fislar of the Hendricks County Police received a call about a single vehicle crash within his vicinity. The incident involved a 2009 silver Honda colliding with a utility pole, shattering it on impact and leaving electrical wires hanging close to the ground. Knowing that the downed wires posed a significant danger to any passers-by and the yet-to-be-identified occupant of the vehicle, Fred rushed to the scene to assess the situation and coordinate the emergency response required. Upon his arrival, Deputy Fred Fislar noticed that the driver had suffered severe burns and immediately initiated efforts to rescue him. However, he unfortunately came into contact with the hanging electrical lines that were still flowing with current during the process. Instantly, he was severely shocked by the current and lost consciousness. Minutes later, a passerby saw the incident and noticed Fred lying unresponsive on the road. The individual quickly used Fred's radio to contact the Hendricks County Communications Center to inform them about the situation. When the emergency medical service officers arrived, they found Fred in a critical condition. They initiated life-saving measures on the scene and continued to provide emergency care as he was transported to the nearest hospital. Despite their best efforts, Fred was ultimately pronounced dead hours later, succumbing to the severe injuries sustained from the electrical shock. Ironically, the driver of the 2009 silver Honda that had crashed into the utility pole, Juan Gomez, survived the incident. Although he had sustained severe burn injuries, they were not life-threatening, and he was subsequently released from the hospital pending the completion of an investigation into the incident. However, in a shocking turn of events, Juan was arrested before the conclusion of the inquiry for a separate operating while intoxicated OWI incident that had occurred before the crash. He faced multiple charges in that case: operating a vehicle while intoxicated, endangering a person, minor consuming alcohol, knowingly or intentionally operating a motor vehicle without ever receiving a license, and operating a car with an alcohol concentration equivalent to 0.15 or more. Before Fred's death, he had served in the Hendricks County Police Department for only 3 years after leaving the United States Marine Corps. A memorial service was held in his honor at Cloverdale High School, where he was an alumnus. Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter attended the service and described Fred as the epitome of a United States Marine, a proud father, husband, and son, and a peer and mentor to many people. A close friend also fondly remembered Fred, saying, "He was always smiling. He was the life of the party and never had a bad word to say about anyone." Fred is survived by his wife and 2 young children, who now face an unimaginable loss. In solidarity, the Hendricks County Sheriff's Office established an official fund for donations to support his grieving family. Additionally, a Red Cross blood drive was organized in his honor, reflecting his spirit of giving. Efforts are also underway to commemorate Fred's dedicated service, with plans to rename the section of road where the tragic incident occurred after him, ensuring his legacy endures in the community he served so faithfully.